All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing Bad River by Marc Cameron. This is book number 6 in his Arliss Cutter Alaskan mystery series. I have the entire series here, right here on my shelf. They all look good together. In fact, I know Marc Cameron. He has signed all of my books. You know I love showing off my signed book collection. Not only that, but me and Marc Cameron did a interview together, which is on my channel. So if you want to watch that interview that we did, it's in 2 parts. Part 1 and Part 2. Just type in my last name, Durfee, Marc Cameron's name, into your YouTube search bar, and those interviews will magically appear upon your screen. That's how the internet works, or so I've been told. Okay, so let's talk about the book itself, Bad River. Let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. So far, all of these books have got great covers that represent Alaska well, and they give the feeling of an Alaskan mystery novel. Just great. And like I said, they all look great on the shelf together. So, who's Arliss Cutter? Well, he's a police officer in Anchorage, Alaska. Federal Marshal, no less. U.S. Marshal, Deputy U.S. Marshal, Arliss Cutter. Solves mysteries and murders in Alaska. I grew up in Alaska, so I think it's a magical place. Anytime books are written or set in Alaska, I am very excited to read them, and I think this is one of the best series going that is set in Alaska. Marc Cameron really does a great job of making the Alaskan landscape itself almost like just as an important character as any of the other characters in the book. Because if you've been to Alaska or lived in Alaska, you know the Alaskan wilderness is just dangerous, magical, frightening, wondrous, majestic, and huge. It's all of those things, and it can make for exciting adventure stories. So, this book begins with a shootout. Marc Cameron kind of has a formula where each book starts with a little adventure, not really that related to the main plot. It's only a few chapters, but it gets you into the story, gets you introduced to Arliss Cutter and his partner in the police force, Lola Tariki, and some of the other people that are in the police force that we followed. And this one starts with a shootout. The opening scene, it's a chase through a muddy landscape. In fact, a truck rolls down a cliff into the silt of the beach. And here's the thing: as I've been in Alaska, you know they say quicksand. Alaska has a lot of quicksand. You step in the wrong spot of silty sand along a riverbank or a beach, and you're stuck. It's like stepping in cement that hardens immediately. It's like being caught in an avalanche. It just sucks you in. You can't get out. Most people just have to wiggle out of their boots and their clothes just to get away from it, if they even can. It's these little details about Alaska that Marc Cameron just sprinkles through, that if you're from Alaska, you're like, yeah, that's obvious. But if you're not from Alaska, you're like, well, there's no real such thing as quicksand. Well, there is. So anyway, there's a shootout. They track some other bad guys through a muddy, bear-filled mountainside. We learn how to track. The characters learn how to track people just by the way their footsteps are. It's really cool. And then the main plot, though, is there is a missing girl up in a place called Wherein, Alaska. I didn't even know this place existed. I knew of Fort Wainwright, which is in Fairbanks. It's an army base in Fairbanks. I didn't know there was an actual village called Wainwright, and it is not far from, well, it's in Alaska and relative. In Alaska, it's not far from Barrow, which is the big and I can't remember what the Native American name for Barrow is. It's mentioned a ton of times in here, but I just remember it as Point Barrow from when I was. But anyway, it's the northern slope of Alaska where all the oil comes from, where the pipeline is. Anyway, there's a village called Wainwright. I Wikipedia'd it just to see if it was real, and it is. It's like 600 people, small village, but there's a girl that's gone missing. A very promising young girl goes missing named Willa Dean, and she is, I mean, she's like the promising star of Wainwright. As a high school student, she's a excellent basketball player. She's got offers from University of Connecticut. She's might just go into the National Guard or whatever it was. Anyway, she goes missing. And for 2 years, she's missing. People think she's been murdered by some of her classmates. But anyway, our main character, Arliss Cutter, has to go up and solve this murder. And I won't tell you what happens, but they do find a body eventually. Along with some other things that are with the body, some other little trinkets, archaeological trinkets, rare, that lead Arliss Cutter into thinking, well, these similar trinkets were found with my brother's body when he died, and we all think that he might have been murdered. Well, do we have a serial killer? And that's kind of where the main plot goes. Now, back in Anchorage with the other police officer, Lola Tariki, she's on the hunt for a bunch of child predators in Anchorage. And that's a fun story to follow, too. The two stories eventually converge, and all of it converges into how did the young girl die up in Wainwright? What happened in the past with Arliss Cutter's brother? How did he die? Was he murdered? Are the two deaths connected? And what does this all have to do with hunting child predators down in Anchorage? Just an absolute great entry into the Arliss Cutter series. Probably might be right up there with one of my favorites in the series, actually. I absolutely was just enthralled with this book from beginning to end. But then again, I'm from Alaska. I love Alaska things. I can picture everything that's going on and where they've been. I've been north of the Arctic Circle. I know what it's like. I've been to these frozen wastelands. Oh, and then when he describes how big polar bears are. I mean, I knew polar bears were big. I didn't know they were that big. But they're huge. This book is a 10 out of 10. No holds barred. Great mystery. Great writer. Great place to set mystery. Alaska. Big thumbs up.